MSME changes have actually created a lot of interest as well as worry in the minds of entrepreneurs as to what will happen with regards to the dues that are pending as on mainly 31st March is fast approaching, and a lot of queries are coming to us online, offline on this topic. Uh, and that is why there are a lot of implications from a tax standpoint, also from commercial standpoint, that is actually creating a lot of curiosity in the minds of businessmen. And that is why we thought it is a good idea to get on a small, quick chat with CA Amit Doshi. He is our partner and a very, very senior professional, and has been spending a lot of time in studying and helping businesses handle such changes and issues which come to their desk on day-to-day basis. So it is a good idea to have him on the call and try to get most answers that you all are seeking as business owners regarding MSME payments today. Let's start the session and keep it very, very interesting and interactive for all of you. Um, so let's have the first question. Uh, who can get registered under MSME, whether it is manufacturer, service provider, and trader? I think that can be the first question.
Uh, yes, Nitesh. A good question to start with. Um, in fact, theoretically speaking, all the three categories can get themselves registered under MSMED Act. But traders who are added in last couple of years during COVID only, but they are entitled to get the registration only for the purpose of getting the priority sector lending. So all other benefits like deal interest on delayed payment and other things are not made available to them when this particular category was added to MSMED Act for the purpose of registration.
So, do you mean to say that a delay in payment of a trader wouldn't attract any implications which are being discussed now in the current changes?
In a way, you can say it is like that, but the Income Tax Act does not have bifurcation between the traders, manufacturers, or the service provider. So, as such, if you go by the theoretical meaning of what is given in Income Tax Act, which only states that the dealers registered under the MSMED Act would get cover, and that too only medium and small, micro and small enterprises. So theoretically, it is so. But in my view, since the category of traders were added to the MSMED Act for the purpose of registration only for the priority sector lending, this should not be applicable to the traders. But however, it would I would welcome some suggestions or some kind of guidance from Income Tax Department on this to avoid litigation at a future date. But so far, there is no guidance available from Income Tax Act.
So tell me one thing, MSME is the one which is registered as MSME, or anyone who is an MSME by definition is an MSME for the purpose of these current changes and introduction of Section 43B in the bracket H?
Good question. This has been doing rounds for many months now. But in the section 43B subsection H is very clear about it. It categorically states that only those who are registered under MSMED Act would get covered, and those, even if they are eligible to get themselves registered but have opted not to get themselves registered, would not be covered under this particular provision.
Okay, great. So then we come to this question as to how this Section 43B in the bracket H would impact the businesses who are dealing with MSMEs and who have been having outstandings of the MSMEs and who have been working on this to understand as to how it will impact their financials.
Well, first of all, I would like to say that the it is applicable to all the businessmen. It is not restricted to manufacturer or trader, whether you are registered under MSMED Act or not. Uh, so, what is important for you to determine is the supplier of services or supplier of goods with whom you are dealing. If the other party is registered under MSMED Act, then basically they would come under the tax net or the provisions of Section 43BH. Even if you are a trader, even if you are not registered under MSMED Act, all the provisions of 43BH are applicable to you. There is no bifurcation. There are a few people who are asking whether exporters are covered under these or not, if the goods which are purchased are exported from to a foreign country, then whether they are covered or not. But they are also covered, squarely covered under this, and there are no exceptions to this.
Okay, great. So just to paraphrase this, if you are a supplier and wanting to take advantage of Section 43B in the bracket H, you need to actually get yourselves registered. But on the other side, if you are a recipient, that is, if you are using the services of a registered MSME, or if you are using the products which are being supplied by an MSME supplier, then in that case, you need not be registered in any law or any section. You just need to be a business who is actually doing a business, and you are squarely covered by these provisions, right?
I think it is very clear.
Okay. So basically, all who are registered, not registered as MSME, but taking advantage of MSME have to become careful and have to take cognizance to what has changed, how it has changed, and what is going to impact you as a customer to these MSME suppliers. Let's go to the next point. Is it mandatory to follow Section 43B underscore H by all recipients? And also it is applicable to only principal payment or also to the automatic interest payment that is due to the MSME suppliers.
Well, good question. If you really go to the accounting treatment or the way in which you are allowed to claim the interest, interest payable to MSME under the MSMED Act is actually not allowable as business expenditure in the first place. So the question of claiming or coming it under the net of 43BH does not arise. So this would boil down to the fact that only principal amount which is payable to them for goods or services, which is otherwise allowable to you under the Income Tax Act as expenditure, would only get covered and not any other payments.
Okay. Uh, on this note, I would want to understand what if MSME registered person is ready to accept payments beyond 45 days? If due date falls in the previous year, and if the due date falls in the next financial year, what are the implications?
There are
Because it is
no.
31st March, it is very important for people to understand this.
Yes, I understand this, and this is very important also. In fact, there is no discretion made available to the service providers or the MSME who are giving the or supplying the goods. Uh, Even if the terms of payment which is agreed to by both the parties allows you to make payment beyond 45 days, but by virtue of provisions of MSMED Act, it is getting restricted automatically to 45 days. And irrespective of whether the MSME is agreeing to the delayed payment or even the original terms of agreement provides you to give credit of more than 45 days, the provisions of Section 43BH would squarely get applicable to in all the cases.
Okay, so if the due date falls beyond previous year, and if the due date falls within the previous year, what are the implications as on
Uh,
31st March?
well, Section 43B provides for a disallowance of expenditure if the payments are not made within the prescribed time. That is, I mean, let's assume for the time being that it is 45 days. And if you fail to make payment within that specified period of 45 days, then on the day on which you are defaulting on payment, it gets disallowed. But at the same time, when you make actual payment to the supplier, and if that happens to fall within the previous year, then there is no disallowance at all. Because automatically, once it is getting disallowed on the date of default, the same gets allowed again on the date of payment, which happens to be within the previous year. So they would not be getting affected. Only those payments or those creditors who are outstanding on as on 31st of March, that is the balance sheet date, are getting affected. So two criteria to be followed when 31st March occurs. Whether the specified period is getting over before 31st of March, or it is getting attracted only after 31st March. For example, the supplies which are made on, say, 20th of March, wherein the specified period of 45 days is to be calculated, and it is outstanding as on 31st of March. So what one needs to see is whether within 45 days from the date of supply of goods or services, the payment is made subsequent to the balance sheet date of. So on 20th of March, if we presume that the payment falls due on 5th of May, and if you made payment before 5th of May subsequent to the balance sheet date, then there is no disallowance attracted.
Okay, so the
But
auditor will also have to worry about, and also the businesses, of all the outstanding payments, maybe it is due or not, and look at post balance sheet, or you can say post financial activity of the payment in time. If that is also not happening, then on the date of balance sheet, the liabilities actually occurred.
so
So one has to capture and record the liability on 31st March, even if the payment is due date is beyond 31st March, in case of non-payment or untimely payment.
right. Okay, so the criteria to be followed for the purpose of making sure that all the payments which are required to be disallowed under Section 43BH is the date of balance sheet, the outstanding creditors' payment as on the date of balance sheet. So first criteria that is to be applied on 31st of March on the balance sheet date is whether these payments are outstanding beyond specified date or not. If these payments are outstanding beyond 45 days, for example, if that is the specified period, then all the payments which are outstanding for more than the specified period would get disallowed irrespective of when you make payment. As
Okay.
and when you make payment for those defaulted payment, I would term it, would be on the date on which you make actual payment.
Okay.
And those payments which have not crossed the specified time limit as on 31st of March, you have to see whether the actual payment after the balance sheet is made within the prescribed time or not. Say, for example, in previous example which I gave you, supply which is made on 20th of March, and you cannot make payment, you could not make payment before 5th of May, which is the specified time, specified period, and you are making payment on 6th of May, this would get disallowed in the current year and would be allowed in the on the date on which you made the payment. So 6th of May 2024, and it would get you would be able to claim deduction only in subsequent year.
Okay. So to paraphrase this, basically Even if the due date is after 31st of March and the payment is delayed by any chance, then one will have to add that expense which is made or deducted from the P&L account for the year which is getting over, that is 31st March 24, that is 23, 24. And then subsequent year, when you actually make the payment, you can claim it in subsequent year, that deduction, not in this year. So even those kind of expenditure have to be very, very carefully handled by the business people, right?
Certain.
So that brings to another question, that what are the due date criteria for the MSME vendors or suppliers with whom we are dealing? What are the days or number of days that has to be taken care of? Whether these number of days start from the date of invoice or they start from the date of actual delivery, and how careful the business owners should be about this kind of payments.
Okay, good question. Uh, it is not always the date of invoice unless there are some issues with respect to delivery, with respect to the services which are provided by the MSME vendor. The day on which the services are completed or goods are accepted without any difficulties or without having any complaints about the goods or the rendering of services, the due date would start from that date. Invoice may have been generated before delivery of the goods also, but the day on which goods are properly supplied, accepted, or services are properly rendered and accepted by the service availor, the period of specified date would start. So again, uh, maximum day number of days which is allowed under MSME is 45 days. But if there is no agreement as to the date of payment by default under MSME Act, it is 15 days. So one should be very careful to find out whether it is 40 days or it is less than that. You will have to see the agreement between the between both the parties. If there is no agreement, like no purchase order issued by the purchaser or the service availer, or neither this nor any reference of due date of payment in the invoice of the supplier, if both the criteria are not getting fulfilled for the purpose of deciding what is the date of payment or agreed date of payment, then in that event, it is only 15 days. So we have to make sure to see that either there is some agreement exists between the two, and in absence of that, the default period, the specified period would only be 15 days in all the cases.
Super. So that means the documentation has taken front seat as far as the purchase agreement is concerned, as far as the actual documentation of any contract is concerned or PO is concerned, as going to take a front seat in taking all these decisions. And there will be huge amount of litigation in the income tax later on with regards to ascertainment of whether the liability has actually arisen or not arisen with that MSME supplier or vendor. This is going to be a big area of concern. You can say a gray area which will start happening, and we will see a lot of activities happening on this. So we will request or recommend all our business owners and customers to be very, very careful with regards to their POs, their documentations, if and also any objections raised against any actual payments or activities of the suppliers or the vendors, so that they don't fall in the trap of this gray area. Let's go to the next important question with regards to what is the responsibility of the auditee. Auditee means the customer, again, the business owner, to take care or to comply with this provision. Is the simple email asking for MSME registration details to all suppliers is enough? That means if a customer or a business owner is actually sending emails to all his suppliers asking Please let us know if you are covered under MSME. If you are covered, please provide us with the registration certificate or any other details that you have with regards to that. And if the details are not being provided, does that mean that he is able to escape the liability, or still, if the other party is covered under MSME and later on claims to be an MSME, he is under the trouble?
Okay, fine. It is a good question, and every person covered under the MSMED Act has to take care. Normally, what happens is that all the MSMED registered dealers would display their registration numbers and other details on the invoices. So that is first criteria which is to be seen. In absence of that, the other alternative suggested by you of writing mails to them and getting information, asking for information from them is good enough. So even if you write to them, but they've already given you the registration details on their invoices, it gives you clear indication that the other party is MSME.
So we can't escape the liability if they have already given their declaration along with the invoice.
Right. In absence of that, what you suggested could be a good workout, good way of discharging the liability by the auditee.
Right. So for auditor, uh, how do the audit, what to what extent the auditor has to go to find out MSME issues, right? As a business owner, you also need to understand this, and for the professionals, it is important to understand that MRL from the auditee starting there is no outstanding, stating that there is no outstanding as on 31st March 2024 is enough, or he has to go beyond. The auditor has to go beyond and do any kind of substantive testing or verification of vouchers and find out actually whether the liability has been escaped in the guise of a declaration or a statement.
Well, as far as MRL is concerned, it is only the supporting that an auditor normally asks. MRL is not the conclusive evidence, and auditor cannot escape from his liability based on getting some kind of representation from the auditee. Yes, when as and when it is not possible for auditor to verify things and the auditor uses MRL, it is fine. To that extent, MRL is justified. But auditor has to take due care based on the records which are available with him for the purpose of auditing to make sure that these dealers whom the auditee claims to be non-MSME is MSME or not. For example, if all the invoices which are issued by a particular supplier or the service provider contains information about the MSME, then MRL cannot be used by auditor to escape the liability or to allow the deduction for the auditee. So that care has to be taken.
So basically, you are saying that the business owner should be ready to face the auditor's queries, even if he is giving a statement or declaration, and he should keep all his trail and documentation ready with regards to the MSME suppliers, whether the payments have been made in time or not, along with his bank statements and all the details, and also make sure that he satisfies the auditor with regards to basic vouching and substantive testing before he's been declared as compliant with regards to this provision.
Certainly, Mitesh, he has to be ready with everything, including the bank statement. But when you refer to the bank statement, there is one uh, other point which is to be considered by the auditor is many times what happens is that the supplier is already made payment. On, say, for example, 29th of March, supplier is given the check, but he has not encashed it. It is encashed on 10th of April or 15th of April. So what is the actual date of payment that an auditor would consider?
Yes.
Because this, I believe, would be a bone of contention between the department and the assessee as to the date of payment. So one needs to verify whether the checks which are issued, which are uh,
Under
in the under
reconciliation.
the reconciliation are actually cleared subsequently or not. And as an auditor, I would be more comfortable if the proper stamp receipt is made available to me for the date of payment.
Even if the
Either in
check
the
is
form
not
of, yeah,
clear.
even if check is not cleared, I would take the confirmation from the vendor that okay, I have received the check on 29th or 30th or 31st of March, which gets subsequently cleared, but the date of receipt, which is issued by the vendor, is 29th, 30th, or 31st, and the check actually gets cleared subsequently, then as an auditor, I would be comfortable.
Okay, great. So, okay, so post-dated checks is going to be a gray area, and one has to be very, very careful with regards to documentation. If one is issuing post-dated checks and taking the shelter of post-dated checks for actual payments that are made, and taking the deduction in the same year in which actual the checks are issued.
Yes.
So this is something very important. Lastly, very big loophole and issue that people are asking us again and again and coming back to us is I'm a small businessman and I am covered under 43 AD, sorry, 44 AD, and actually filing my return and declaring my income in that section. Still, should I take care of MSME vendors and suppliers, or is it okay if, since I am not required to produce any books of accounts or anything, I am into presumptive taxation, can I escape this provision?
Mm.
So, what is your view on that?
Well, in simple word, yes, you can escape the provision. This is for the reason that Section 44 AD and Section 44 AD uh, excludes this particular section, Section 28 to Section 44. All sections are deemed to have been complied with by dealer or by the SSE who is claiming its income under Section 44 AD. So those who are offering their income under Section 44 AD, in my view, are not covered by under this section, and hence they need not worry about the payments to MSME.
MSME, vendors and suppliers. Great. I think these are few questions that have been bombarded on all the professionals, chartered accountants mainly. With this year end coming very, very near, and these changes are becoming apparent over a period of time, and there is a lot of concern in the industry and businesses about this. So that's why we thought it is a good idea to bring Mr. Amit Doshi on this platform and tell him to or request him to share his views on various aspects or questions that are coming up. With this, we would conclude this video, sir. Thank you for your time and comments and views on this topic. And we will continue to build more issues and discussions as and when it is need of an hour for the businessmen, like topics on TDS or GST or income tax or MSME or corporate laws, which we feel are very, very relevant to the business owners. You can reach out to our YouTube channel, APMH Consulting, and you can subscribe it and be part of this channel, like this video, and continue to see compliance, tax, assurance, consulting related updates. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much.